Hello, Joel. Well, man, welcome to the Sacred Surf Shack podcast. Been super excited for this one. An absolute honor. I know we connected probably 2019 before the shit show began.
Yep.
You're definitely someone I've like looked up to and respected greatly since all the stuff started happening in 2020. You've really shown what it is to be what I see as like healthy masculinity. That's standing up for truth, standing up for integrity, standing up for our kids, just generally standing up for the collective really. So today I just want to, guess have a free flow chat conversation, maybe share a little bit about yourself, and then yeah, we'll just let it go where it needs to go.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to be here. I mean, share a little bit about yourself. It's a long journey. It's a long story. I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, man. But basically, dude, like I'm someone that refuses to compromise integrity. You know, um, I think it's a process that we all go through, but all of us in our lives come up against the crowd or or the collective or the mainstream pool, be it the family, be it the community, be it whatever it might be. And we're all born into this system where we kind of forcefully and without questioning it adopt the moral code of what's conditioned upon us. And there's this antagony that builds because at some point our inner morals, and our inner values, they clash with that code that's been conditioned upon us. And this leads us through a process of transformation, of self-discovery. And you come through the other side and you realize that, hey, I'm here to live by my values. I can't irrationally adopt the values which I haven't actually proven are true for myself. And so I decided to walk my own path. And those are the things that are important to me: authenticity, integrity, truth. And my entire journey is basically trying to, find ways to manifest my inner reality external to me and do that with as much purpose as I possibly can in all my endeavors. I don't know where you want me to go. We can go into the history, but that's basically who I am and where I'm at.
No, that's beautiful. I think you've opened up beautifully. You don't have to go into any story. It's all good. But what you said around like the culture conditioning and
Yeah.
it probably begins in the womb. Let's be honest. Like, but when
100%.
we step straight out into the world, it's like boom, you're this new sort of spirit, getting a taste for it from the womb, and then all of a sudden, all these impressions come on us. And from my own studies into existential, just psychotherapy, like kind of stuff, you know, it's it's hard for the spirit, right? I did a post about it recently. It's like all these kids that are like high spirited and bursting at the seams and don't stop moving and don't conform as kids
Yeah.
are labeled as bad, as wrong, as dysfunctional, when actually they're probably the most functional.
Yeah.
It's just as parents, they didn't, especially parents of past, didn't have the capacity to hold space for that, to actually be able to hold space for these higher values, higher virtues that these children are probably more than likely attempting to bring into the culture and into society. And I feel like yours probably had a similar upbringing to myself, where you're probably high spirited, bit of a rebel or rebellion, and now in times like this is where we thrive,
Yeah.
because we have that. It's almost like how we have a truth radar and we have an unwavering sort of like sense of, I wouldn't say full sense of self, because that's the whole process of, you dissolving and deconstructing the self to allow whatever it is that we are to emerge fully and to transform. But you kind of said it beautifully, as like your journey has led you to here, and now you're supporting and just helping others to also awaken to their own truth and their own sort of probably deeper values that got covered over by the
Mm.
culture conditioning. And yeah, man, it's just so awesome to see another man doing that, because there's, as you probably know, there's a fair few women warriors out there doing what more men need to be stepping up to do.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, see, the thing is, we don't live in a society or a culture that's really catered to the individual, and like, to me, well, from the school that I come from, we all are individual selves, the true self with a capital S. We all have that. We all have unique gifts, unique desires, unique wants, unique needs, unique ways of responding to life, unique purpose. But it's too difficult to cater to the individual child, to cater to the individual that has their own wants and values and needs, which is different to the collective, different to the family. But for some of us, we just something within us that we refuse to relinquish, that deeper sense of self, that deeper sense of knowing that, hey, I'm a human being having a unique experience. I have my own values, my own virtues, and I want to walk this way. Ultimately, why do I have to follow or conform and give up this incredible gift that I've been given? And I think we take that for granted so often. Like people talk about conspiracy. This is the greatest conspiracy of all time. What the hell are you and I doing in these human bodies right now, having this conversation, having this experience? The great philosophical question: who am I? Where does that ultimately lead? And I think so many dreams have just died and been dissipated by the wayside in a culture that, to be honest with you, is completely at war with the individual. We value the group's interests above the individuals, and so many people are born into this culture burdened with guilt and shame and resentment and obligation simply for the fact that they live. We can look deeply into religious programming. For example, I was raised in an incredibly repressive culture. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so to speak. So my sense of self was up against monumental programming to have to come out the other side of that. To me, that's my mission, is to re-inspire, reignite, and help people. Find that spark again. You're a unique person. Become the master and the sculptor of yourself, Nietzsche said. Become who you are, become who you were born to be. And I think we're all born for greatness and for uniqueness. And that's the path that is going to lead you to true fulfillment and true contentment, by finding what your own values are and bringing those manifest into reality.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I'm just like blown away that who you are now, to come from Jehovah's Witness. I've met many Jehovah's Witness, and like that's the brainwashing of brainwashing. I come from like pretty strict Catholic family and school and stuff, but meeting Jehovah's Witness, I was like, oh, I had it easy.
It's the most fundamental.
Yeah, it's incredible that you've come through this, and I guess what you said is become the sculptor, and you say sculptor and the
Nietzsche's quote: become the master and the sculptor of yourself. Yeah,
it's beautiful. And I want to touching on a very really poignant point around individuation, or there's an individual, like we're all individuals with our own unique purpose and own unique gifts and unique talents and desires and wants, and however you want to word that and paint that. But there's like, we all have a unique essence and frequency about us, you and I. And I want you to talk in a bit more about individuation and purpose, as I feel like, and I hope you agree, you may agree, is like there's people out there using these highly charged words, and when it's more of how I see it, it's more of a process of dissolving to reveal what's truly already there, rather than it's not a career, it's not a vocation. Even though we use these as an extension of ourselves to support these sorts of innate gifts and stuff. I want just you to share your perspective on that, because I feel like the viewers might gain a lot, because I feel like you're really
So there's lots of traps and pitfalls on the path of awakening, in my experience, and I feel like I've walked many of them. For example, from an overtly new age perspective, the whole idea of becoming nobody is something that I completely disagree with, right? I mean, I walked that path for a little bit, but really what it is, it's an evasion of reality. People talk about dropping the ego. Like, how can you drop the ego? At the end of the day, the ego is the executor of the psyche. It's the facade. It's how you interact with the world. So the first question is what is it that we're dissolving? Now, obviously, there's a dissolution that takes place for sure. And in my view, it's just that. It's the conditioning. It's the programming. It's that moral umbrella that I spoke about, which doesn't really reflect who we truly are, so to speak, what we learned from our parents, from school, from society, all the ways in which the true self, the imperial self, was dimmed, it was diminished, and it was burdened with the weight of what's actually not true for us. So the path of individuation is finding ways to reinvigorate and re-tap into that deeper sense of self, those deeper urges, those deeper impulses, those passions that you have that absolutely are not random. The reason that you want to be a musician, the reason that you want to write a book or be a poet or start a podcast, it's a deeper acceptance of who we are. And it's finding ways to bring that manifest into reality. The great Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. For many of us, we can just go on an inward journey and purely have an inward experience. But at the end of the day, we can't negate the humanness of what we're here for either. So to me, part of walking the path is just that, walking the path, having an active, oriented mindset towards life, doing the thing and being productive. And as you do that, more of yourself is going to come to the surface to be met, because ultimately those shadows and the unconscious material that's holding us back from really becoming who we were born to be, that can't be done by just sitting and meditating on a mountain at the end of the day. We have to walk with purpose. We have to achieve something. We have to do something. We have to be productive. We have to come against our fears. We have to walk into the walls, right? And then we rise to the challenge. A lot of this for me comes down to the entire concept of self-esteem, which in my view is an incredibly misconstrued idea out there. It's very watered down. Most people have no idea what self-esteem actually is. But self-esteem ultimately is the reputation that you acquire with yourself. It's how you feel about you. And at the end of the day, that reputation, the quality of that relationship is going to determine the quality of every single choice that you make in your life. And the sum of all those choices ultimately is our destiny, So for me, individuation is cultivating true, authentic self-esteem, developing a healthy sense of self, recognizing that I am truly competent and capable and worthy of existing, of being in reality, of dealing with the challenges of life, not running from life, not evading life. I'm here for a reason. And I know you can ask a group of people, how many of them actually feel worthy of existing? I guarantee you, if they all said it, I am worthy of existing, 60, 70% of them would not mean it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it, like what you said there about the path of, the going down nobody, I need to become nobody. And that sort of, it can get into that nihilistic sort of existentialism where, yes, we can have an incredibly rich and beautiful inward journey. And I've definitely fallen into that pitfall, but there is almost like a service for other always. It's like our soul and our spirit. That's what I feel like is our deepest desire, is to be of service to others. But then in that, as you're being of service to self at the same time, it's this sort of paradox. It's quite wild because life becomes beautiful and rich and joyful. And we start to have all these beautiful experiences when we start to make those decisions and make those choices. And like, kind of touching what you said around the self-esteem, like that's just beautiful how you have reframed self-esteem in that way, because it is watered down. You're like, oh, I got to be confident. But it's like, when you really look at it, it's like, yeah, we got to reconnect ourselves to the innate, reputation with ourselves, not even reputation with others, because let's just say we are all oneness, right? And we are all interconnected, which I hold the belief that we are all interconnected. And in that, it's like, well, then your reputation, say my reputation with you and your reputation with me, it's just with another self. And if I read the book I Am That, talks about kind of touches in on that. But it's these sorts of like this sort of core wound of unworthiness that seems to be so prevalent in society that a lot of people actually just can't move beyond, which is then there's also like the core feeling of shame that many of us feel.
Yeah.
I was reading a book about how so shame's like the lowest vibration on the frequency scale or something, and enlightenment piece being at the top. Just quite fascinating because we live in duality, right? So if you look at opposites, so shame is like the doorway into transformation, and things come out of shame. So, what has been your sort of navigation of, I guess, worth? Because I know you're a conscious rapper, you're a father, and you do a lot of really big things, but it would also challenge fears, worth, and how have you navigated moving beyond that? And not even just that, like, you're a Jehovah's Witness. I couldn't even imagine what programs were instilled in you, and to come through that would have been it's like an incredibly courageous act into authenticity and integrity and honesty. If you want to.
Yeah, man. Well, I made a post just earlier on Instagram where I said that choosing to live in integrity in today's moral sewer is a heroic act. It is a courageous act, judged by the standards of what the collective is actually doing, you know? And I just want to touch quickly on what you mentioned in terms of, service to self and service to others. And that's part of the deepest programming that I've found, is that the programming is playing on the natural benevolence and kindness of human beings. Okay. But the issue with it is that we can only be of service to others when we're of service to self. It's only the human being that's filled their own cup that has anything to give. Okay. But what we've been programmed to believe is that I'm only a good and moral person based on what I can do for someone else. But anything that I can do for myself makes me selfish. It makes me greedy. It makes me evil. It makes me whatever it might be. So we have all these individuals who are actually scared of filling their own cups because they fear being judged by society, by the family, by the collective. And so Ayn Rand, for example, called selfishness a virtue. Now, what does selfishness actually mean? It means to be concerned with one's own interests. Now, I think we can all say that we value our own life. We value the fact that we're a living being. So if you're a human being that values your life, then she's absolutely correct in saying that selfishness is a virtue. Because unless we value our own lives, unless we value our survival, no other values are possible. No other virtues are possible unless we're willing to do what it takes to sustain our own lives. Now, this is a natural principle. Every single organism in nature doesn't think twice about its own existence, about its own survival. A plant, as you know, will naturally face the sun. It'll naturally dig its roots deeper. An animal's not going to think twice about having to eat. Human beings are the only organism that has what's called volitional consciousness, which means we have to choose to think about whether we're going to serve our own existence, whether we're going to survive or not, right? And part of the reclamation of self, in my opinion, is reclaiming the true meaning of selfishness. But in order to do so, we have to reclaim what it means to be a rational thinking being, so to speak. And this is where I'm going to tie it into self-worth, because as I mentioned earlier on self-esteem, which Nathaniel Branden, in my opinion, is a psychologist and the father of self-esteem. It's only in our ability to think that we're able to be productive and we're able to find ourselves competent and worthy of dealing with life. So for the longest time in my life, I gave up the faculty of thinking. I decided that my life was more enhanced by not thinking. I decided that thinking was futile, that I wasn't capable of properly thinking and creating and providing and building value, And a lot of people on the path get stuck in that paradigm as well by walking the New Age path, and they walk into all these teachings that say drop the mind, do not think, still the mind, etc. How the hell are you going to still the mind? What does that even mean? How the hell are you going to stop thinking? The one faculty that you have to serve your own survival is the faculty of your mind. That's how we go. That's how a hunter and gatherer would have gone and found and foraged food, or killed an animal to eat, to survive. So to me, The development of my worthiness has been in my willingness to think, has been in my willingness to be more conscious, has been in my willingness not to evade any aspect of my reality, to seek truth, not to avoid truth. If there's a painful reality in my relationships, in my workplace, in my family dynamics, within myself, it's only by choosing to recognize reality that I can then develop the reason and the thinking faculties to actually do something about it. Now, most people are living in Maya. They're living in illusion. They're seeking not to choose truth, which is completely within their right. As I mentioned, we have volitional consciousness. That means we have the choice to think or not to think, to eat or not to eat. So most people are evading discomforting facts. They evade the painful aspects of reality. They evade themselves. And so what's that doing? That means you're casting a shadow for yourself. That means you're lying to yourself. That means you're curating inauthenticity. You're curating illusion. You're trying to make reality what it is not. And in doing so, you're abandoning your own reason. You're abandoning your ability to think because you're signaling to yourself that you can't trust yourself. And to me, this is where unworthiness really comes into the picture. It's when people don't find themselves capable of dealing with life, dealing with the painful realities, dealing with the fact that they've lied or cheated or deceived someone and then tried to get away with it by not owning it within themselves. So worthiness is completely related to truth. The more we seek truth, the more we seek to be reality oriented, really take a stark look at all the things within our lives that work, that don't work, and then realizing that, hey, I need to make a change here. What's the next small step that I need to make? We take that small step, we get feedback from our environment, we realize, hey, I can walk, I can move my feet, I can move my legs. Let me try take a bigger step. And this is the process that it's been for me. And eventually you can run, you can fly.
Beautifully said. And I love that you brought it back to there's that sort of like gray area about selfishness. You know, I like to say be selfishly selfless or selflessly selfish. And you and I both know if we don't be selfish as a father and fill our cups, how on earth are we going to hold space for our child in such a way that they need it? We can't.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I think I've heard this somewhere as enlightenment and transformation is one of the most selfish acts that an individual can take. But it's like a paradox because by going so deeply within to reveal our inherent worthiness and the truth that comes from that, we then are able to serve others in such a way that you just described and articulated so powerfully that it looks like you're just serving others, but it's because we've served ourselves in such a deep way that we can serve others in such a beautiful and deep way. And so many people avoid this fact because there's almost like a toxicity linked into being selfish, which is on some level, if you do look at the behaviors that people are doing, seeking pleasure over pain and to avoid basically their own stuff. So, and just kind of like you said, it's like, yeah, everyone does kind of have a choice. And it makes me kind of like wonder, I've been wondering this actually a lot lately. I don't know if you've heard of the term NPCs, non-playable character. It makes me wonder if like let's just say this is a game, like you said, we'll just use this highly charged word. This is the greatest conspiracy of all.
Yeah.
Reality, like this sort of game. And it makes me wonder if there are characters, people, individuals out there that are actually their sole programming is for people like myself and you to realize, to seek truth, to seek our worthiness. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to say on that? It's an interesting sort of concept, that one.
I mean, it's entirely plausible. We can either look at it from an existential sense, but I prefer to look at it from a psychological sense. And to me, an NPC or a non-player character is someone who's abandoned their selfhood. They've abandoned themselves. They've given up their virtues, their values, their purpose. They've given it up to the crowd, to tribalism. They've decided, yes, I agree. It's too hard to be to be my own person, to have my own values, to walk my own path. So I'm going to give that all up to the crowd, and I'm just going to basically absorb myself into that program, the collective program, whatever it might be. I'm going to go through the school system. I'm going to go to uni. I'm going to pick one of the 4 or 5 jobs allocated to me, and I'm not going to think about anything ever again, so to speak.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I like that. I think that that's probably a good strong truth there. Um, I find it an interesting concept. um,
They're all around us, man.
yeah, everywhere. Everywhere. I want to go into parenting and
Yeah.
just I just know from myself, like we both have young kids under 5,
Yeah.
and the challenges that they bring, but also the beauty at the same time. But I wanted to just express that navigating what we've had to navigate over the last 2 years. 2 years? Yes, 2020. 2 years.
I'm coming up to 3. Yep.
Coming up to 3. Yeah, it's the last 3 years. Like deciding to stand in truth, authenticity, integrity, and not bow down to the perceived overlords. They're not overlords, but they're not. Yeah, I want to just touch on like some of the challenges that maybe you faced and how you've overcome them, just for other parents out there that may be listening to this.
I mean, parenting it's a heavy responsibility. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But I think it forces you to forge more as a human being. And I mean, if you want to talk about it in the context of everything that's taken place since 2020, we were given no choice. Ultimately, and that's the place that I came from with it, is that you've no longer given me a choice. I cannot rely on the Babylonian systems for any aspect of freedom, integrity, liberty whatsoever. So now you've forced me to develop more self-reliance than I ever realized even I was capable for myself. Because hell to the no, will I ever allow my kids' minds to be molded by a government organization for 6 to 7 hours every single day of their life for 11, 12 years, And I mean, particularly in the situations that we're in, trying to parent as consciously as possible, to be as present as possible, to be within the home environment. It's not easy, man. It's there's no beating around the bush whatsoever. Particularly when obviously we need to provide financially as well as provide in the other areas of our lives. We need to be able to support our wives and the mother of our children to be able to do her job more efficiently, to have the freedoms to relax and fill her own cup as well. Every single day, it's like walking a balance beam. Every single day.
Oh, literally. It's like sometimes I feel like you're walking like one of those slack lines between like a big thing. It's just like, if I fall right now, I don't know what's going to happen. And it's so beautifully like, yeah, man, like kids are just the most powerful. Like becoming a father, I feel like in this day and age, and talking to a friend recently is like, there's not enough hard shit men do anymore. We don't go to war, we don't go to battle, we don't go out hunting and gathering. Well, some of us do, but I feel like one of the most powerful initiations a man will go through is becoming a father, because it just, we don't have innate and inherent in us the qualities of a mother: nurturing, empathy, compassion, which is there. It's not to say we don't have it, but it's more so that for us, it's something that we need to reveal because of the dysfunctional sort of masculine collective psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, man, like the last 3 years has just been so incredibly challenging to consciously parent while juggling what you're saying is like stepping outside of the Babylonian sort of construct to stand in freedom and liberty and all of that. And I just have so much respect for parents that decided to make that decision, because we are we're kind of like we're the next generation,
Yeah.
and it's the next generation that's going to end up carrying on this torch that we are trailblazing. We're like the trailblazers. Would you say that? Probably the next trailblazers. and our kids are the next ones before that, and there's a a bit of weight there for our kids to, which, to be honest, like, I don't know if you've noticed this about your children, but they're real high level souls. And I notice about my two is they're just like coming and they're just so perceptive and so switched on. I'm like, whoa, like, especially my 4 year, she's almost 5, but when she was 3 years old, like, I was just having a fucking meltdown. It had nothing to do with anyone. I was just having an existential crisis. And she just come and put a hand on my shoulder, and I just broke down. She goes, "All right, Dad, I'm here for you." I was just like,
Gosh, bro.
I just started crying and blew open. I was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" I get like a space held by a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And then she didn't want to go with Mum because she wanted to stay with me. She's like, "It's all right, I'll stay with you, Dad." I'm just like,
Wow, man.
just imagine like their kids. It's just wild, man.
Yeah, bro. I hear you, and I agree absolutely, man. And like, it feels like since 2020, like so much of the collective shadows come to the surface, but also individual shadows between relationships, like things that inauthenticity, it almost feels like it has to be purged, so to speak, for us to move forward consciously and in integrity. So, even within my relationship with my wife and in my household, like nothing can be bypassed anymore whatsoever. Everything has to come up to be dealt with, so to speak. And I wouldn't have it any other way whatsoever. But yeah, man, there's consequences to choosing authenticity, to trying to live with integrity. And yeah, that's my commentary on that.
No, it's good because like there is like for choosing truth and
Yeah.
authenticity, like especially when you do it in a family unit, like there's something about the container when you have your wife and you have, because I've got some clients where like that it's either the wife or the husband, and one of them's just not choosing truth. Just so much like tug and pull. But then when you're in a container where both the mother, the father, or the male and the female are deciding authenticity, truth, integrity, honesty, and healing, no bypassing, everything comes up.
Yeah.
No shadow or no stone is going to be unturned.
Yeah.
I think that's the one.
That's
but
what
in
it
those
feels like.
boxes, yeah, that's what it feels like. And it's like it's so powerful. And like you said, it's like it can sometimes feel like consequences from God, but it's like a gift at the same time. It's like the gift of grace from God. It's like, here you go. Sorry, I forgot to wrap it, or I wrapped it a little bit fucked up, and here you go. You kind of look at it going, what the fuck did you give me this for? And then it might take, days or weeks to unwrap, and then you realize just, wow, thank you for that experience. And
Yeah.
feel like people are missing out, to be honest.
Yeah, man. I mean, because we weren't raised to hold space for big emotions, to allow children to fully express themselves, to fucking tear down the walls if they feel they need to. You know what I mean? And obviously,
Yeah.
you come up constantly against your own conditioning from your own parents the entire time. Like, there's no greater mirror to the self than in becoming a parent. I feel like there's shadows and unconscious material that simply cannot be gotten to unless you go through the rite of passage that is becoming a father or a mother, that is parenting. So yeah, man.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was like, I've been sitting with this with myself as like thing. I'm having experiences with my kids where I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, like what is going on right now? And then like when I kind of sit with it and go, what's happening? It's like I'm literally at a point now in parenting where I'm drawing from nowhere, because I've made the choice to rewrite the parenting story.
Yeah.
So the conditioning that I have is just it's just shonky. It's not working. So you're creating a new blueprint, and then I think that's where I see most parents stop trying to consciously parenting. They're stuck consciously parenting is because, one, they probably don't ask for support or find mentors or find the right content,
Yep.
information, or are able to, like you said, like transmute those shadows. Because I don't think that I've been thinking the exact same thing you just said. Is I don't think there's any other way to like excavate those particular conditionings other than in while you're parenting.
Yeah.
And it's hard work, fun but hard work.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like I said, life is a challenge, and self-esteem is finding yourself worthy of meeting that challenge. And it's no different in the parenting arena, you know. And obviously, especially for our wives and the mothers who choose to consciously prep parent and breastfeed and nurse and co-sleep, who get absolutely no relaxation, who get no respite, who don't get to really come up and chat for 90 minutes on a podcast away from the kids.
I know.
You know, I could like and that's where more of our work really has to come in, you know. Like, I guess our job more than anything else as fathers, in particularly those early formative years, like children under 5, so to speak, is to find ways to give our wives breathing room, to keep their heads above water, to be able to, you know, support them to do their job, to nourish properly. I mean, they're literally nourished from their own bodies, you know.
Mm.
And
Connected energetically till
yeah,
7 years old. They're connected into the auric field of the mother. And it's not till 7 where they start to separate. That's why for fathers, it's such a different experience. And obviously, I'm not a mother, so I've got no idea. But that's why for fathers, it's so easy for fathers to become absent fathers
because we feel
because
useless.
you feel useless straight away. We're like, oh fuck, I don't have a boob. You know, I
And
didn't
that's the
just grow.
thing, yeah, because our relationships with our wives become ruptured, and obviously they're forced to have a new number one, which you're all for. But then it's like, where do I stand? Where do I fit? What am I meant to do here? And figuring that out for those first 2-3 years it's a process, man. You're in no man's land for a long period of time, but particularly like you said, without support and whatnot, etc. Then you're dealing with the projection from your wife as well, because all of a sudden she's burdened with this responsibility which she's never had to deal with before. I'm talking about the first child here, obviously. And it's a lot to navigate. It's absolutely a lot to navigate. But like you said, man, we don't have many organic rites of passages left available to us to individuate, to become who we're born to be, to develop the strength and cultivate what's the power that's really available to us. But trying to have a healthy relationship and raise a conscious family is a rite of passage like absolutely no other.
Yes, 100%. I don't think there's anything quite like it. And like you said, like your first child will be the most testing. Like I think it's like one of those sort of first 2 years, like the make or break of the relationship. You know, and we can look if we speak into like say the collective, which I think this is like hilarious. Like people they get the good job, they get the nice car, they get the couple dogs,
Yeah.
they get married, get the house, and they're like, yeah, sweet, kids is next. Yeah, kids, yeah, kids. And then all of a sudden it's like relationship starts to collapse because they haven't built any foundations, one of conscious support and to look after themselves. And if they do make it through that period, it's like with not changing, like
Yeah.
that's when you start getting more, I don't like this word, but zombies. More.
Yeah, man. Like, looking back on it, like my first was born in 2018. I was a child, bro. I
Oh,
was a
dude.
kid.
Yeah.
I do not know that human being. Like, honestly, bro, I had no idea what the hell life was. And I'm
Yeah.
sure at that point in time, I thought I had it figured out. But man, I just look back and think, poor fellow, bro.
Yeah. It's so laughable. I was thinking about saying this to someone the other day. I was like, fuck. Like, they're like, oh, like, when did you have your first kid? I was like, yeah, 2017. I was like, man, I was still a boy. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was in store for. Like, so much boyish tendencies. This kind of like leads into like, I wasn't sure if we are going to go there, but let's talk about like boy psychology, man psychology, healthy masculinity versus, which is, a bit charged, toxic masculinity. I like to use wounded or
Uh-huh.
dysfunctional masculinity, but maybe we can go into that, seeing as we've spoke about, fatherhood, rites of passage, truth and stuff. But probably there's not a lot of rites of passage these days for men and the youth to go through, to almost like reach that sort of healthy adult, or
Yeah.
being individuated. Like, in the old days, it was like, here's a spear, go in that cave, something in there, I'm not sure what. If you come out, you're a man, thumbs up. Like wild. But yeah, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts on the at the moment around that?
I mean, the thing is, in the culture that we live in, it's so much harder because we don't have any real accountability. We don't have any real mirror of what it is to be healthy in that sense. So we have to hold ourselves even more rigorously accountable for what it is to develop those healthy qualities and those healthy attributes, you know? Um, and there's so much discussion around, the polarity and healthy masculinity and healthy femininity. And to me, it's like, how do we be healthy human beings? Um, how do we live more consciously? How do we live with more personal responsibility, more integrity, more purpose, more self-respect, more self-assertiveness? Um, and they're pillars which we have to work daily and consciously to cultivate within ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to those standards of value. Um, in terms of boy psychology to man psychology, got to say I'm still in the process. It's something I'm still figuring out in many ways. I grew up in a household where my family was quite successful. Everything was always provided to me. I was raised just to inherit a family business, so to speak. So I feel like I, more than most people, bypassed some of those organic rites of passages to build self-reliance and to learn how to provide for myself. I was in a very comfortable scenario until 2008, global recession. My family lost pretty much everything. And then, it went from everything to nothing really quickly. And seeing that shift and seeing that transformation was pretty profound. So it's only in the last 3-4 years that I've even walked and remotely tried to discovered what it means to be self-reliant, what it means to be a provider, you know. And obviously provision is, in many people's eyes, the foundation of healthy masculinity. But I saw a post of yours earlier, and like, it's not just providing financial means, and I think you're absolutely correct in that. But how do we take what we've learned from that process and use it in every single other area of our lives? That's what we're here to do. We're here to create value. We're here to provide value. Yes, money is a value, but obviously presence is a value, connectedness is a value, nourishment is a value, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of people who are having this conversation, they don't have kids. I found,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they talk about, building a healthy relationship, playfulness, time alone, stuff like that. Like, some of these things aren't possible
Uh,
in our scenarios,
mm,
and there's this projection of, this ideal healthy masculine, ideal healthy feminine, etc., etc. But it's not realistic. So what I've found, man, honestly, is that, again, these are things which we have to figure out for ourselves. We have to use our own being, our own minds as the final arbiter of truth of what it is to be a healthy masculine. We have to hold ourselves accountable to our own standards, not whatever's projected on Instagram as what that means. Um, and as I mentioned, man, it's a daily balancing act for me. I recognize the things that I need to do. I know I need to provide for my family. I know I also need to be present. I know we also have higher values which we are which we are seeking. Um, and how do I fill all those cups each day? You know.
yeah. and coming back to what you said around the pillars, it's just like it's like just destroying the old pillars and rebuilding stronger pillars so that we can become more self-reliant. And it's so true. Like I've been saying this for so long. It's like you look out on social media and the internet, and most of the loudest people speaking this are single or just have a partner. They have no kids. They've got no idea. It's like, oh, what'd you do today? Oh, did so much self-love practice and self-care. It's like, what'd you do? Oh man, just like kids all day. It's great. I might get an hour before bed, you know. And it's like sometimes it's like that, especially with young ones, because they're very still connected into you. But I just find it so beautiful. Like in that, there's so much, you find so much value about yourself, like coming back to, healthy masculinity, healthy femininity, but really it's just healthy human, like you said. And I love that. I love that you
Yeah.
said that. And, as human, we need to learn to provide more of those sort of innate gifts that we all have. And this is coming back into what we're talking about, purpose. I feel like a lot of our purpose isn't, because we all have a unique purpose, but I feel like I have a sense that 50%, maybe even more of our purpose isn't something that we actually use for monetary value. And it's actually like these innate, so I'm quite playful and silly, and it's just naturally there, and witty and all these sorts of things. Whereas some people are like, oh, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know, like it just happens. Like, oh, it's so good. You're making everyone laugh. And I've learnt more about myself. I try not to shut that down, but it's like that's part of your purpose. It's like, that's like the golden, as Carl Jung, I think it's Carl Jung, like the golden shadow, the shadow that's positive, because obviously not all shadow is negative. And I think like coming back into like a healthy sense of self and more of a stable sense of self is being able to recognize these gifts and these talents and these parts of ourself that we can activate or bring forth in any certain setting, not necessarily just like, me and you talking and chatting right now is like, there's parts of our purposes becoming activated right now. But then as a parent, there'll be parts of our purpose that are becoming activated when we're with our children. And I think it's whoever listens to this podcast, just to really sit and marinate with what Joel is speaking into around, what it means to guess be human and how to move from, like you've just shared a bit about your journey around, you're in the Jehovah's, you're given, like almost given stuff on the table, and then you went through a recession, and that would have been so challenging for your own conditioning to come through that. But here you are today, self-reliant, free, and standing for truth.
Yeah, man. And the thing is, like, we're all given unique karmic predicaments. You know what I mean? Whether you want to call it karma, whatever it might be, there's a balancing act going on. So all the unique challenges that each of us have been given, they obviously hold great gifts. They're the keys to unlocking our potential. The things that we've been able to overcome in our lives ultimately is what we're most able to offer to anyone else. The person who we're here to serve is the person that we used to be, you know? So how do we look upon those challenges and those predicaments and those difficult situations and our painful realities and really seek the gifts in them? Because that's the path forward. There's something that you already have, which no one else has, which is unique to you. And it actually lies in everything that you've overcome or you currently are overcoming. That's what we're able to speak into more than anything else. So for me, my journey, it might be learning how to provide for myself and for my family and become more self-reliant. There might be more of a focus on that because of my unique predicament that I was raised into. But for others, it might be having to cultivate attributes more so in other areas. And one thing which I think is important to add to this conversation is we talk about this whole concept of individuality and uniqueness. There's systems and tools out there and available to us which can really highlight to us our unique attributes, unique gifts. I found a great benefit in systems such as human design and gene keys. And I found that they've really echoed to me things that I actually already knew about myself. But realizing that there's divinity And I actually am born as a unique individual with unique purpose and unique gifts. And that's reflected to me through my birth information. That gives me so much greater confirmation and confidence to lean even more so into who I am. You know, we all have unique ways of responding, um, unique strategies in life, which these systems can highlight. And it's actually really helped my journey as a parent as well, in learning how to parent better, and also really highlights certain aspects of my children because they're individuals as well. But for most of us that aren't aware of these systems or these facts, like we're just raised the same as our siblings. We're just expected to respond the same way, to like the same things, to be held to the same standards, you know? But we're all so much more different as individual selves than really we are the same. Sure, on some macrosmic level, we might emanate from the same source, but ultimately, right now, we're individual expressions, we're individual beings with unique ways of being, unique ways of responding. So I really implore people to go and, you know, figure some of that stuff out as well, because that was really life changing for me, my journey through divination, and beginning to understand these systems in a deeper way. It really can provide someone with an extra oomph and confidence just to trust themselves, honor themselves, and live life according to their values. Not, and it gets us out of the compare and contrast game, having to think that we have to hold ourselves to the same standards as someone else or achieve the same way someone else does, because it's unnatural and it's not the reality at all.
Yeah, that's a powerful point. Glad you kind of brought that up because I've found so much benefit from human design and astrology.
Yeah.
I don't know which astrology because I have an astrologer, but um, it's just like it's wild every time I have an experience. Holy fuck, like that's me to a T almost. And I haven't gone into Gene Keys yet, but you're probably like the fifth person to bring it into my field, so maybe there's something there for me. But
Yeah,
um,
man, definitely. Like even just within my relationship, like I'm a generator. I'm here to respond to life. I'm not meant. I knew you were a straight G, bro. I knew that
yeah.
already. Like I'm not here to initiate. I'm not here to catalyze. I'm not here just to force things into action. I have a large enveloping auric field. I'm here to respond to life. Life is giving me opportunities, and it's up to me, to my sacral center, to be like, And if I'm
Yeah.
into it, I know I can give my energy. But for us as generators, our whole lives, we've been conditioned to be manifestors. We've been
Yeah.
conditioned just to do and create off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
People recognize that we have this energy, and we've
Mm.
spent most of our lives saying yes to all the wrong things, committing to all the wrong things, and taken off the beaten track time and time again. So without that simple knowledge of my strategy, like who knows where my life would be right now? It really is life changing information, you know. And for
Oh, dude,
example, yeah,
fucking, it's super life changing. Like, I wish no, I don't wish because it was a powerful experience, but
mm,
I said yes so many times and I landed myself into prison. So I was like military and then just kept yesing myself into
yeah,
darker and deeper and more wilder shit till I was in prison. And then that's when I had this an awakening in there. But it's from that experience that I was able to see more clearly. And like you're touching, like we have all these experiences, like karmic experiences that it's like, this is a guy I study called Peter Ralston, and
mhm,
he goes, "There's a reason why you don't remember every taco or shit you ever eaten or had, because in your story, there's certain parts of your story that you remember. There's a reason why you remember it.
yeah,
And then as time goes on, you perceive the same story differently, because we keep mining out bit by bit. And that saying how healing is not linear.
yep,
And we might be back in this sort of theme or upset from 7 years old or 16 years old. You're almost like, fuck, I did that like 6 months ago. What's going on? And then realization, oh my God, I didn't see it like that. And it's like these parts of our story have so much purpose in it. But coming back to like these systems that you're talking about, human design and gene
yep,
keys, astrology, um, it's just like it's so much more helpful when we start to. And I know there's people out there that are like they're super skeptical about it, and and there are people out there that are almost the opposite of skeptical, and they're like identify.
Mhm.
They're just too identified with it. It's almost like it becomes like mind fuckery, and they
Yeah.
can't seem to separate from it. But there seems to be, like we chatted about, a balancing act with these systems as well. Using
Yeah. I think you have to treat them as experimental. You have to experiment for yourself. You have to take the knowledge, take the information, try it, and see how things shift for you. Like in human design, I'm an emotional authority, right? That means I'm constantly riding a wave of emotions. And looking back on looking back on my life, like I recognize that when I'm at the peak of a wave, I'm more inclined to say yes to things that probably are no good for me. When I'm at the low of a wave, I'm more inclined to maybe reject something that actually, in reality, feels more centered, is good for me. So having that knowledge that I need to give myself as much time as possible to make decisions, especially big decisions, knowing that I'm on a wave, knowing that I need to find my center and sleep on things. That's just in that has provided immense value to my life. But for example, we can be programmed to believe that we need to make decisions the same as everybody else. There's some people out there with sacral authorities or splenic authorities that can make decisions just off the bat like that. But we carry these expectations for ourselves. So unless we can highlight our own individual process and decision-making processes, which these systems do offer for us, it's easy to get stuck acting against who we really are, acting against how we're actually born to make decisions, so to speak. So yeah.
No, I like what you said. Like even around because I'm a generator, I'm a 6-2 sacral authority
You're
generator.
sacral. Wow, bro. I'm 6'2"
Yeah.
emotional. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm emotional. I've got all three of the generator thing.
You're emotional then.
Yeah, emotional. Is that emotional? Yeah, 6. I'm emotional. And like, yeah, the wave thing, man. Oh, when I saw that, I was like, holy fuck, it changed my way of being
Yeah.
completely. And I was like, fuck, I'm not an initiator. My partner's a super manifestor. So she's a manifestor. And she just,
Right.
and when she found out, it's just like boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, we work really well together because I just respond,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, cool. And then sometimes like, no. What I want to bring up around, let's just want to go into this, something I've been
Yeah.
sitting with being a generator, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like we can initiate or respond to our own? Obviously, we do. It's probably a yes, but we respond to our own inner thing once we sit with something, and it's like a responding. Or something. I was talking to another generator, and she was like, I said this to her. She's like, "Oh, I never looked at it like that because sometimes, if we get so caught up with the external, oh, I've got to respond to something external to myself. It's like,
No. Yeah.
no, you got to respond to yourself sometimes,
Yeah, bro. There's internal impulses.
Yeah.
There's absolutely
Yeah.
internal impulses. And bro, when it's a yes. When it's a full body yes and you're ready to go in.
Like vibrating.
Yeah, bro. Does it light me up or does it not light me up?
Yeah.
That's the question we ask ourselves. And people that discover their generators, they control this easily, even just with food. Do you feel like fucking steak or do you feel like Thai? What's your body actually responding to? How can you tune into that sacral center? Which really is a deeper intuitive authority that we have. So it's really important for people to begin to reconnect with that. What do I actually want? What's my body actually telling me? But as you know, we live in a culture that people are so disconnected from their bodies. Most people are just walking heads. They got no idea that there's this organism beneath their neck. You know. But that's the authority to me. Psyche and body. There's no separation. It's one thing responding, right? It's body mind, so to speak. So we need to really bring the body back into the picture. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that human design helps to highlight as well, for sure.
Oh, massively, massively. It's like in Hermeticism, they say it's all is mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, there are so many people addicted to disconnection, literally addicted. They're not addicted to drugs or alcohol or sex and stuff. They're actually addicted to disconnection, disconnect. And like he's just walking around like his heads. I've been there and I remember how shit that was. And I always thought I was in my body, which I probably was more than I thought, but just due to the nature of my conditioning in the military and all that, it's like, yeah,
Yep.
it's hard. It's hard work. And, you've got to face a lot of very difficult feelings in the body.
Bro.
So much.
It's some of that's the hardest work. That's the reason that people have these inclinations to escape from the body, and it's also the reason they're attracted to these ideologies which encourage them to escape from the body. But really, it's escaping. It's escaping from suffering. It's escaping from pain. We think we can live in this one seasoned world that we can just escape the humanness of it all, but we can't. Like reconnecting to the body and becoming embodied is actually letting the body feel what needs to be felt, letting the body feel what you refuse to let it feel initially when these traumatic events took place. You know what I mean? But can we sit with ourselves? Can we really accept our big emotions, our big feelings, without the need to project them onto anyone else? Can we own them in a real way? And this is part of the process. But in many teachings, the body ultimately is the shadow. And it is, because the body is where the unconscious matter is stored,
Yeah.
So it's not a psychological, analytical process. Oh, this happened to me. I did this, et cetera, living in our heads. What does your body need to feel in relation to that event? And do you have the courage to let it feel it?
Yeah. So I'm a ninth dimensional Lemurian star seed and I don't have feelings. No. But it's like, you're right, man. Like those sort of ideologies and new age sort of fuckery, like you just go off and you're like, I need to get out of here. I need to go to the sixth dimension where all my cats are and be with them. And it doesn't work because we're sensory beings. We have the six sense gates, and with each sense gate, there is so much attached to it. And the easiest gate to connect in with is the body. We've got ears, eyes, but the easiest one is just to be with our what is also called clairsentience, I believe, but just to be with that body. And it's just starting with it's challenging. I've guided some people in therapy into this, and they can't feel their body. They go, I can't feel anything, man. I'm numb. I'm like, okay, well, being numb is and being numb is a sensation. So they're actually feeling.
Yeah.
It's just because of their range and their sensory range can't stand further than just numbness, because that's all like you said, it's just from here.
Yeah.
Numb. And it's just increasing that. And there's so many powerful modalities to do this. So we've touched on systems that can support you to know yourself better and to reorientate and respond to life in something that's more aligned to you. But maybe we can just, before we finish up the podcast, talk a little bit about some healing modalities and practices that have supported you in your journey to start to reconnect to the body, to start to be able to feel fully and move through life with more connection to life.
Yeah, man, for sure. And again, I think this is a very individualistic process. What feels good to you? Like there's so many people out there, I'm just going to fucking go do a breathwork session, go jump in an ice bath, whatever it might be, because that's what's trending on social media. But what do you actually want to do? What feels right to you, And to me, I was really drawn to Qigong, to be honest with you. And Qigong has been a very powerful modality in my life to bring the body back into the picture, to allow myself to connect the breath to the body and to slow down. But on top of that, I think truly understanding, even from a theoretical level, your nervous system is incredibly powerful in being able to re-engage with the body. We've done a couple of podcasts with Irene Lyon, who's one of the foremost nervous system experts on this planet, who I really encourage people to listen to on Here for the Truth. And I think the nervous system obviously is the foundation of the soma. So I think understanding even just the basics, fight, flight, freeze, being able to recognize when we're shifting between sympathetic and parasympathetic is hugely powerful in being able to, again, build capacity and reconnect with the different nuances and sensations. Like, oh, I can notice myself disassociating right now, for example. But even just being able to sit here, can we recognize our feet on the ground? Can we recognize our bum on a chair? And reconnecting with these subtle sensations. It's very, very, very slow work. It's nothing. It's something that can't be bypassed. There's no biohack for the nervous system and for developing a healthy relationship with your body. But it's a bit by bit being able to, recultivate those sensations, which we just take for granted, really.
Yes, and yeah, I love what you said about taking for granted these sensations and things that we don't notice, like yeah, hands on the legs or
Yeah.
sitting my ass on the pillow. It's like it is a very, very slow process, and for most of us who are consumers of not so nice things, drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
porn, sex, whatever you want, caffeine, all of it, like it's it affects the nervous system. And I think what you said around practices, to find what works for you. Don't just dive into the trending basket. Love that you. It's like me. I see the same thing. I'm like, it's just fucking trending.
Yeah.
It's just trending. It works. So there's benefits. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, for sure. But
But
it's not going
it's
to be for everyone.
not gonna be for everyone. Don't fall into that basket if you're just doing it because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
Because I found qigong as well very powerful, and it's really helped connect to my body. And someone who's abused drugs very heavily, um, and as well as PTSD from the military, I'm
Yeah.
coming back to my body, and I would dissociate so easily. And now it's like qigong is just wow, just really helped me come back in my body and breathing, just
Yeah.
making breath like ah. But yeah, there's like I just want to reiterate to people listening: find your own modalities, practices, find what works best for you. Try not to fall into the what everyone else is doing. Because often, and I know for myself, I went and did holotropic breath work, and it was too much. It was great, but it was just too much. Like it
Mhm.
actually created more instability in my life. That style of breath work than it did
Oh,
stability.
yeah. I mean, for people dealing with, a certain level of trauma, like you should not be jumping in an ice bath. You know, you should not be doing that kind of level of intense breath work. There's baby steps. You need to be able to build capacity. It's going to do more damage otherwise. So yeah, I'm gonna.
Yes. Yeah. Powerful point. And yeah, the building capacity is takes time. It's a slow process, and me and you know very well in being fathers that your capacity only capacity for holding space for our children. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
I can only imagine what you were like, and I you can only imagine what I was like in our early days as a parent, just like, oh, what's going on,
Yeah,
Uh,
bro.
and then, but if I look who I am now, and you said that you already said it, it's like, wow, who was I? 4 years ago.
Yeah.
How am I doing what I'm doing now? And, yeah, man,
Hmm.
been awesome.
Has been, bro. It really has been.
So we'll just wrap that up there. It feels like it's come to a natural conclusion.
Cool, man. Do you mind if I
Oh,
share?
but
We just
yeah, I was about to say, can you please just share to the viewers where they can find you, what your offerings are?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely, man.
yeah, go.
So the podcast is Here for the Truth. We have 80 episodes up now. You can head to hereforthetruth.com. And also, everything that I've spoken about today is encapsulated in a group coaching program, which I offer, which is called Rise Above the Herd. And you can find out everything you need to know there about riseabovetheherd.co. And really, this is an 8-week program of rediscovering the self, rediscovering who you were born to be, developing authentic self-esteem, recognizing that you are competent and capable of dealing with life. And a big part of that piece also is, like I mentioned, human design. My co-host and co-facilitator Yerasimos is a professional human design reader, and the course is very much tailored to your individuality. So really being able to reconnect with that deeper sense of self, and really recognizing that you are worthy of existing as a human being. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thanks for sharing, bro. Highly recommend checking out Joel's stuff and offerings. It's very rare to find programs that have that sort of individuality to each participant in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, awesome.
Hmm.